Hello, my name is Arthi and I am in 11C in Colchester County High School for Girls. This is my response to the question, which changes of the last 70 years have affected your local area the most? 70 years ago, Queen Elizabeth II began her reign over a society that was experiencing the ruthless repercussions of the most destructive war in history. However, World War II did lead to us having today's most technologically advanced society the world has ever witnessed. It completely catalysed the increase of multiculturalism in Britain. But one of the most drastic changes that I think shouldn't be overlooked is the housing and accommodation people live in, especially in my local area. Simply imagine, instantly after World War II, the consequences include 500,000 houses becoming destroyed and uninhabitable. In my small city of Chelmsford alone, nearly 1,000 residents were left homeless after the Luftwaffe bombing raids. And rightfully, the provision of housing became a top priority. And in the decade leading up to 1955, 1 million new houses were built, helping to alleviate the worst of the housing crisis. Additionally, 900,000 people were moved out of slums in the 1950s and 60s, which were very early years of the Queen's reign. By the end of the 1960s, over 20 new towns were built thanks to the New Towns Act of 1946. This sparked aspiration for a new housing future, providing good quality homes. So despite the widespread devastation of demolished homes at the very beginning of the Queen's reign, through a rush of construction and repair, this was combated in the short term. Initially, the idea of social housing for tenants to relocate from slum clearance areas was met with excitement and a vision of futuristic architecture. In fact, between 1955 and 1975, around 440,000 flats were constructed. However, by the 1970s, the utopian ideals had fallen short. In Chelmsford, 4,845 council homes have been bought in the last 40 years. The concept of these council or high-rise flats was criticised for their poor design and inadequate quality. It became clear that this high-density housing was badly built. Due to this, it is undoubted that the British people and government were disappointed by the mass housing that had been constructed. Completions of mass housing rapidly decreased, and as a result, the government were pressurised to increase spend on houses. To respond to this, the Housing Act of 1980 was introduced. It was claimed to be the most forward-looking plan for housing that any party had devised since the war. The government recognised the struggle to buy a house and then find it wasn't affordable to live there because the mortgage rate continuously increased. To tackle this issue, they promised several things, such as to reduce the mortgage rate and ensure that it go above that set rate, to give real help with the deposit for first-time home buyers, and to give the right and law to buy our own council house at 1/3 below market price. Of course, the right to buy had pros and definitely cons, but ultimately it undeniably caused momentous change in the last 40 years. Now, in the recent years of the Queen's reign, the UK housing affordability crisis has been continuing to build like how it has been for decades. As mentioned, council housing has been sold on the right to buy schemes, and this has evidently impacted the home ownership of younger generations. In Chelmsford, fewer youngsters have been buying, choosing to rent instead, mainly from private landlords who have bought council houses themselves. This is proven by the fact that in 1996, less than 2,000 properties were privately rented in Chelmsford, and in 2016 this rose to over 6,000. Although with this said, overall Chelmsford does have a higher than average proportion of owner-occupied housing, with fewer social or rented. Moreover, similarly to the close of World War II, In 2017, low-cost houses have been assembled by Chelmsford City Council to alleviate housing problems. In conclusion, the change of housing and accommodation in the last 70 years has substantially affected my local area. Over time, the housing consequences of World War II have been battled, support for renters on low incomes have improved, and methods to reduce the housing crisis have developed. With all industries forever evolving, I am eager to see how the new housing market will transform in the next 70 years. Thank you for listening.